When we talk about protocols, the throw-in administration is a clear example of them because it happens a lot of times during the game. The main objective is to do it always in the same way so it can become an involuntary action. If we can achieve this, it will be easier to referee from the player who is making the throw-in until all the other situation that happens inside the court but still on our primary area. During the throw-ins, these are the actions that should be avoided by the thrower in. First, he should not keep the ball for more than 5 seconds during the throw-in. If he keeps it, then the referee will call the violation, signaling the 5 seconds violation and then the direction of the ball. Second, the player making the throw-in should not put any part of his body inside the playing court. Another action that should be avoided is that the thrower in should not make the ball to go straight out of bounds without it being legally touched by any other player on the playing court. In this specific situation, this is a throw-in violation, so the next throw-in will be at the spot of the original throw-in. Then, the player making the throw-in should not bounce the ball inside the playing court and then returns or get it back. This is also a throw-in violation. Also, he should not make the ball to go straight inside the basket. And finally, the thrower in he can move backwards in all the space he has, but if he wants to move to his sides, it can only be made on 1 meter from the original spot. So if he's moving for more than 1 meter on any side, this is also a throw-in violation. Now, when we talk about the actions that should be avoided by the players that are not making the throw-in are the following. Any of the players inside the court can put any part of his body outside the playing court. So, if we have a defensive player moving his body outside of the boundary lines, this is a defensive violation, and the shot clock will be restarted depending if the violation occurs on the front court or in the back court. If it is made by an offensive player, for example, the player making the throw-in puts the ball on the floor and then comes a partner to make the throw-in, this is also a throw-in violation. Finally, if in here is not the case, but if in your game the player does not have at least 2 meters behind him to move, the referee should make his defender to put himself 1 meter from the boundary lines so the player or the thrower in has the proper space to finish the throw-in. During a throw-in, remember that any defender should not put any part of his body outside of the boundary lines. If this happens, this is a violation by the defense, and the shot clock should be restarted accordingly. Now, during the first minutes of the game, if this action occurs, it should be joined by a warning to that team. So if another similar action or violation occurs, it should be joined by a technical foul. Now, when we move to the last 2 minutes of the fourth quarter or last 2 minutes of any overtime, the protocol changes. If the violation occurs, the first time it happens, it will be joined by a technical foul. So the referee, before administer any throw-in during this time, he should make the proper signal to warn the defense. For example, the referee comes, he makes the signals to the defense, and then the throw-in is made. So if now, when the team is already warned and they put his body outside of the boundary lines, this is a violation joined by a technical foul. Now, this is the throw-in protocol. First, the referee should point the spot of the throw-in to the player. Second, the referee should make space from the thrower in to don't interrupt any of his legal movement. After, the referee should put the whistle in his mouth and finally bounce the ball to the player to make the throw-in. During this moment, the referee can have the 5-second count And also, he will start the clock when the ball is legally touched by a player inside the playing court. Why are there some of these actions? First, the referee makes the space because he needs to have an open angle to referee the thrower in and all the situations inside the playing court but still in his primary area. Also, if he's too close to the thrower in and he wants to move legally his 1 meter, then the referee will be in that direction and interrupt that movement. Finally, if we are on the last 2 minutes of the fourth quarter or any overtime, before bouncing the ball to the player, the referee needs to make the signal for the defender to avoid any technical fouls because of the violation of moving the body out of the boundary lines. If that throw-in is made on the end line of the team's front court, then the referee will blow his whistle before bouncing the ball to the thrower in. Remember that this is a situation that happened too often during the game, and the referee needs to make the same protocol on every time to make it an involuntary action and be able to concentrate on all the situations that can be generated from the throw-in. After a shot or a last successful free throw, the next throw-in can be performed in the following way. A player from the team receiving the basket have the possibility to move along all the distance of the end line, and this is completely legal. Also, a teammate from that player can come out of the end line, receive the ball, and perform the throw-in. This situation is completely legal, but remember that the 5 seconds violation for the throw-in began when the first player of that team comes out of the court to perform the throw-in. If we have a situation in which there is a timeout request by the team receiving the basket and they comes back from the timeout, they can perform the throw-in in exactly the same way. So it is very important for the referees to know when we come back from a timeout if we are going to make a throw-in because of a violation or a foul or a made basket.